Mhm. Hey, welcome to another episode of Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Branson. We just want to thank you for coming in tonight. We got a few people that normally come in with us, but we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we're talking about communication.
Right.
And communication, we know, sometimes entails some intense exchanges, arguments. I want to tell you, arguments. We have those sometimes.
Sometimes.
We've learned to scale them back. They're much less frequent than they used to be, and it's because we had to learn some communication skills.
Right.
And so that's what we want to share with you today, is some communication skills that we have had to learn and have had to implement in exchanges with one another.
Right.
And it also helps because you can take those skills into your exchanges with other people on the job, with your parents, with your children even.
Brothers and sisters.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So learning how to communicate is a very important skill.
It is.
It's a life skill, not just a marriage skill, but it's a life skill. But it's very, very important in a marriage.
Yeah. Cuts down on miscommunication.
It does.
Frustration. Offense. And from a Christian perspective, getting control of your communication skills will help to reduce the amount of open doors you have for Satan to come in and attack. Because a lot can go on between the airways, between one another.
Yeah, the way she said, sometimes I didn't get it. But I'm starting to listen a lot closer to what is being said, and that cuts down on the miscommunication.
That's the big one.
And cause us to get into some intense moments of fellowship.
That are not productive.
No, that wasn't needed.
Yeah, so that's what we want to share with you all tonight. It's kind of a simple lesson, but I think it's easy to grasp if we keep it just kind of basic. Not that we know anything so complicated, because we are just lay. This is lay ministry here. We are peer leaders. Basically, is this position we come to you from as marriage ministry directors. So we are members of Crown Kingdom Cultural Center. Our church is located in North Augusta, which is basically Augusta, just north of Augusta, right up in I-20. So for those of you that live in the CSRA area, we encourage you to come out and share with us in our services on Sunday and Wednesday nights. If you can see our Facebook page, which is where we're coming to you from, that will help connect you to our ministry as well. So our pastors, Finance Bush Jr. and Denise Bush, they have also served as counselors for us, marriage counselors for us on several occasions. And so the things we have learned through across the pulpit through sermons, as well as what we've learned from them directly, what we've learned from our parents. Hey, Mama, I saw you just clicked on. What we've learned from them, from watching them. They have a very solid relationship, godly marriage, among many others.
Right.
We just celebrated with my parents, JC and Brenda Paul. Yeah, we say godparents, but they've been so much more than that. So we celebrated with them. How many years? We didn't say how many years.
I don't know.
We had an anniversary party with them this past weekend. Gosh, we should know that.
Should, but
we need to find out. But it's been a long time.
Yes.
So I'm sure well over 40 years, maybe even up to 50. Somewhere in that area.
Somewhere in that area.
Could be.
Well over 30 years.
Maybe not 50.
It's well over 30 years. Cause
it's been a long time. We'll just say that.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, we'll just say that. Definitely, they put in their time and work to keep their relationship strong as well. So we appreciate them and all that they have added into our lives. So with all that said,
let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. Communication styles. We know that, and we just talked about it, and it's one of the things that couples have an issue with. And I think it's a growing problem because of phones and the way that people are communicating, COVID. And we know that texting has cut down on the verbal communication between people. And the phones have become that line of communication. They don't have that the communication of talking to each other. They text or people text. But we know that's one of the issues with communication. So communication is in layers. It's just not the 4 styles that we're going to talk about. But there are other things that go along with communication. We're just going to start with this tonight.
It's traditional
Right.
to look at communication based on 4 basic styles of communication. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Right.
Just understand that there are, I like that term, the layers. There are layers to it.
Right.
But I think also your basic style of communication is that across the board. It can be that way passively, like you could be using even like when you're texting or on social media.
Right.
Some people will air things on social media that they will not say face to face to their spouse, or they'll come for their spouse or come for another person in a very aggressive way across social media. It amplifies it and gives an opportunity for that communication or that attack to be multiplied. And it adds in that element of embarrassment or shame. And then you got other people kind of co-signing on it,
Right.
which makes it so much worse. So I think you're right. It is a whole lot deeper than what we'll cover today. But we want to make you aware of those 4 basic
ones.
types or styles of communication.
Right.
And also give you some tools that you can apply right now today with the very next person you communicate with.
Okay.
To make it better.
So the first one we're going to talk about is a pretty extreme, and it can be a relationship killer, is being a passive communicator. My goodness.
But I thought that was good. Aren't women supposed to be passive and submissive and humble and quiet?
No, you're a rug. You're a doorstop.
Not me though.
You say women. You say women. I'm talking to you right now. That makes you a rug. People just walk all over you.
No, but not me. You could say a person, but let's not speak that over me because that's
my wife is not this type of communicator.
Don't even know how.
We'll express that one later, but this one she's not. Not my wife.
Well, my point was not for it to be all about me. My point was to say that very often women can assume that it is important for them to be passive because that's the culture very often that's taught, especially in the South, where, be seen that women are to be seen and not heard, much like children. That message comes across to women. That's the way very often women in the South can be socialized, or you might can say something at home, but don't you dare say anything in public. You just smile and be pretty and be there, but you don't need to voice your opinion. You don't need to be seen. You can save all that.
Right.
Don't have a voice. And I think it gets to an extreme, like you were saying. It can be extreme in that a person might begin to suppress their opinion and suppress their feelings and suppress their voice to a point that it becomes unhealthy. And that happens, I think, very often among women in marriage. That person may end up having no voice. And that's dangerous.
And it is dangerous, but I didn't grow around them kind of women.
No, you didn't, which is why you didn't marry one.
Right. So, that's if that's how you operate, and you get what you want, then that's how you operate. But as
you mean
far
you get what you want,
and you fulfill, that works for you.
it does.
I would urge you to do something a little different.
I will say though, I think there's a time and a place to be passive. I think you just have to be strategic with it. Because sometimes you do have to hold your peace and understand the proper timing, the right time for you. You don't have to say everything that comes up. You don't have to come up and come out.
Right.
I had to learn that.
But we don't have to be. I think when they talk about passive right here, it's just something that's how a person operates all the time.
I
They
do.
get there.
Yeah.
That word out of me. Go ahead.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of an aggressive communicator. I'm still working on that. I interrupt people, and I apologize for that. But anyway, I am agreeing with you. But what I'm saying is there's a balance to it. Sometimes it's okay to be quiet. Sometimes it's appropriate to be quiet. But I think we have to learn that can't be your default. It can't be a person's go-to to be passive. And not just women, men.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I've seen them passive dudes. That is not cute.
Well,
at all.
what do you mean?
That don't look good on a man being passive.
I don't think it look good on a woman.
I know I'm talking for the men. You saw talk about the women, but I've seen some passive dudes in relationships. It's not a good look.
Why not?
Because there's an air of weakness there, and a man if you're the when you look weak and you're the head of your household, guess what your house look like? A weak household. That's just my personal opinion on that. So as a man, I ain't saying, and I'm not telling you to be aggressive either. We'll get to the one I need you to be as we continue to talk about this.
Well, I will say that one of the dangerous parts about a person who has a passive communication style is that it doesn't lead to opportunities to solve the problem, because it's a little bit arrogant if you think about it, because the person who is passive may take the stance that they can control the situation by their inaction. And so it's almost a way of taking control of things, or trying to keep the peace, but you aren't truly, that's not really your job.
Right.
You are to facilitate peace, but peace does not mean quiet, and peace don't equate to the same thing.
Right.
And so it's important to understand that your perspective is not less than your spouse's perspective. Mm-hmm. It's just as important. And so you need to have a voice. That's what brings about peace. It's when you're both able to have a voice and to come to a resolution. Constantly avoiding conflict, avoiding getting to a resolution, and you just kind of taking it on for yourself. I see that as a way of kind of like playing God.
Okay.
And it's not an effective strategy.
It's not.
So that's one type of communication. You can look at it and see if you can relate to that, to being passive. But I do see it a lot in women. Mm-hmm. Women very often are choosing to let things go, but they explode at some point. It's going to build up.
We'll talk about that too.
But that's a part of people being passive. At some point, they're going to explode. You can't hold that stuff in forever.
Then it comes out real ugly.
It comes out very ugly and causes a lot of damage. Causes a lot of damage. So we want you to look at that type of communication style, see if you can relate to it, and we'll talk to you about in a little bit about how to address change.
Right. Aggressive communication.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
Aggressive.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
Y'all can go back and rewind
I
this.
felt
I did
something.
not look at her. Aggressive communication is when people use a louder tone, interrupt, often criticize, blame, humiliate their partner, and dominate, control their partner. And I was just talking to some of my colleagues yesterday at church, some of the other deacons at church, and we were outside and we were just kind of, talking about marriage and all that. And I'm going to talk about mine. If my wife would have married a weak man, he would have been in trouble. If she was looking for a weak man to dominate, he would have been in trouble. And she's laughing because she knows the truth.
Now, I want to know why you made that statement.
Elaborate. You ever seen a dog in a corner that's just been beat? He'll have his tail between his legs and don't really move and shaking. She'll trigger man. She'd have had him like that. It's the truth. Is that not the truth?
That's not ever my goal.
Right.
That's never been my goal.
But could that have happened if you'd had somebody that just was like, okay, hold on, we if he wasn't able to hold himself with you in conversations and stand up to some of the body blows verbally that were coming from your mouth, would he been able to stand up?
I don't know, because I ain't never been attracted to no weak man.
Okay, there you go.
So we'll never know.
Never know. So, is that a fair statement about how that aggressive communication can make people be that way?
I have already addressed that. You're not going to back me in the corner.
No, we're just talking about how aggressive communicators, how they can make people feel, or how they can treat people, because it's all about what I think and not about what you think. And if I don't think what you're saying is right now, what you're saying don't make no difference. And then if somebody giving to that makes that person's communication style seem like it's just the way that we communicate. This is our form of communication as a couple.
We should continue.
Yeah, we continue. You got
You
anything
back
to say?
yourself in a hole.
You got anything to say about that?
Oh, well, the biggest thing is aggressive. That aggressive communication style is not effective.
It's not.
It's not effective. It does not display the character of Christ. It definitely needs to change. So what I would say is to examine yourself and see if you can relate to that. But I do notice that a lot of people who are aggressive communicators come from an environment where that's the way people communicated, which would be aggressively.
Right.
And I think that's probably true of every communication style, because I would think that you would learn your communication style from the people with whom you have communicated with most of your life, which would be your nuclear family. Right. I think that's the right term. Mm-hmm. The family that you have come from, your original family. So however you communicated with those people is most likely what you were going to bring into the marriage. Hence my experiences. We have a lot of strong opinions in the world where I come from. A lot of aggressive communication going on. So that's what I learned, and that's what I brought into marriage.
Well,
so let's talk about this next one.
It's passive,
and who can relate to
the passive aggressive communicator.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about it. All about it.
It's a way of indirectly telling people what you want, but you seem to be acting in a passive way, but you're very, very aggressive with your style. It's a chameleon type of communicator.
It's a silent rebellion,
and it's more or less. And the reason I'm saying this because I used to communicate with my wife this way. Mm-hmm. My wife just explained to you that she was an aggressive communicator. She wanted things her way. So my thing is...
No, you explained it. Go ahead. It's okay.
Huh?
It's okay. Go ahead.
What?
Keep going.
Okay.
You talk about
and when she wanted it her way, in the back of my mind, I knew this is not going to work. So when it doesn't work, that's when I flip over and become that aggressive communicator, and it did not work either. That just didn't work for us because it was more or less like, okay, you knew this. I knew this wasn't going to work. I was just waiting to tell you. I told you so, more or less. And that was not a good way to communicate with her.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that you became a passive aggressive communicator after marriage? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
I was pretty aggressive in my communication because before marriage, I can just not deal with you. I would dismiss you. I would dismiss you and tell you why. Not just I was just passive. I don't want when I was communicating with people, it was more or less like I would tell them exactly why.
Okay.
So you don't fit. Oh yeah, I would mean. You don't fit who I need in my life right now. I'm saying it real nice and Christian-like right now. But back then it wasn't Christian-like and it was filled with cuss words and all that kind of stuff.
So it wasn't assertive.
Oh, no.
It was aggressive.
Right. Okay. I was aggressive. And then I knew when I got married, I couldn't communicate with my wife like that. But that's the only communication style I know. So then it looked like I was passive. Because I didn't want to say to you what I said to other people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because you're not that level. You weren't on that level. You were the person I chose. And I was like, no, I can't communicate with her like that. I can't tell her when to go, how many times to go there and go get that. I could not do that with her. No, so my way of communicating had to change. And then it kind of changed to this passive aggressive thing. And I was just kind of bottling up stuff, just waiting until I can just tell her how I felt after what she wanted. It didn't work. But then I was just like, well, no. I learned about this assertive communication style, and we're going to talk about that.
Well, let's go back. You just said what's on your paper because that's a very good point.
Oh, yeah. This communication style is what I call nice nasty. It's a very, when people say they're nice nasty, they're aggressive. They're passive aggressive communicators. Because it was like, oh, yeah, go do that. Stupid.
Mm-hmm. So your inner thoughts don't match what you're saying.
No, at all.
And that was the problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing that was very frustrating for me, is because it wasn't that, and you weren't necessarily, sometimes you were sarcastic about it, but most of the time you would pretend to be agreeable when you were not at all agreeable. And so I would think that we're going in agreement and moving forward when that's not at all what the situation is. So then his behaviors would be totally different from what we agreed to, which led me to feel that he was dishonest. And that was, you can see how this communication was.
It's very dishonest because you don't say what you mean and you don't mean what you say.
Right.
And then, like you were saying, my actions didn't agree with what we were doing, because an easy example of that is we agreed to save a certain amount of money, but there'll be excuses of why I couldn't have my portion of the money, or why that didn't happen. That's just an example.
Yeah.
Of what we're talking about.
Because it wasn't necessarily, because that wasn't really the actual issue.
No.
Yeah, but that's exactly the spirit of what it was.
Right.
Just not following through and just continuing to do things however you wanted to do, despite the fact that I've voiced concern and we had conversation about it. But part of the issue, I'm sure, was the fact that I was so aggressive in the way that I approached it. And so he would just be passive and agree, but then do whatever the heck he wanted to do.
And that don't work.
That caused even more problems, and it causes mistrust.
So now we get to this assertive communication. Clearly advocate and identify your feelings and your needs to the person
without disrespecting the needs and feelings of your partner. That's the key. That's where you want to get.
Right. And I think we are there with the communication, because now even when we're talking about certain things, whether I agree with it, I have to let her know I just don't agree with that. And then she'll want to know why. And I tell her why to the best of my ability. And then she'll be like, well, I don't agree with that either. We're just inagreeable. Now we've learned to, well, until we agree, we just won't do it. But, now when we do that, now we know where each other stand. There's no...
Well, but it's not an impasse.
Right.
Because at that point, what we do is we have some strategies to actually come to an agreement.
Right.
And so sometimes that can look like coming with some suggestions, because that's maybe what it be, is we go separate ways and say, come back at, we'll come back on the weekend and come with some suggestions and how to go forward with that. And once we do that and come to the table with the mindset of reaching an agreement, I don't think we ever have not gotten to a place of agreement.
Not here lately. Not after we've learned to do the assertive communication the right way. I mean, we're calling that now because we put a definition on it. But we developed this relationship where assertive communication is the best. Assertive communication means that I agree with everything she's saying and she agree with everything I'm saying. No.
Oh,
it doesn't mean that.
You mean it does not?
It does not mean that.
You said it does.
No, it does not mean that.
Okay.
But what it does mean, it opens the way for open and honest communication.
Right.
And that's where you got to be. Right.
And really the goal is for you both to develop skills to become an assertive communicator. I don't think anybody is 100% there all the time, because if something gets you angry enough, you may revert back to your old way of communicating, or not necessarily angry. It can be, grief or whatever, because, we're human and we go through these changes and transitions. But if most of the time you are able to use the skill of being an assertive communicator, you're going to cut out a lot of the confusion and frustration, and all the problems that are birthed from that. The distrust, the dishonesty. If you're able to be honest and communicate effectively with each other by being assertive, you will be heard. You will learn to hear your partner, to be a good listener to your partner. Those are the things that really help get you to a place where it's really a foundational skill that helps support everything else that's going on in the relationship. It helps you to learn to be a better communicator and a better partner.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you rather be married to somebody who can make their needs known and who can hear your needs and be always in a position to or mindset to get to a resolution versus someone who's always fighting for their own, that self-preservation. They're always fighting for that.
That's more or less aggressive. But it's just they want what they want when they want it and how they want it.
But it's passive aggressive too. Passive aggressive people put their needs above the other person's need and they're not even willing to compromise. They're gonna make you think they agree and still put their own priorities first.
Right.
But if you're able to get over that hump and actually implement the skills it takes to become an assertive communicator, then you have a much better foundation going forward in your marriage. So I do want to say one thing I noticed as we were studying this lesson is that the goal is to become an assertive communicator. But as a child of God, as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus Christ, we have the opportunity to exhibit, that's the word I want to use, the fruit of the Spirit. Because if you are an assertive communicator, that means you learn to communicate in a clear, calm tone of voice. That involves temperance, which is self-control. That's a big one that just goes left in this communication endeavor, is a lack of temperance, a lack of self-control. And when you work on that, on being an assertive communicator, it involves your getting yourself under control in order to be in order to speak calmly, to speak clearly, to voice your opinions in a kind way, to use a kind word, to speak gently. That is what will allow you to use the fruit of the Spirit. That's gentleness, that's kindness, it's temperance, and it's meekness too. I don't know if meekness is considered fruit of the Spirit, but my God, it's got to be. Because meekness is having that power under control. It involves love. You got to love your partner and your relationship enough to get to that place to pursue peace. All of those things are evidence that the Holy Spirit lives in you. It's the fruit of the Holy Spirit. And to get to that point, you have access to the Holy Spirit. If you're not a child of God, if you're not a Christian, this is one of the reasons that you would consider allowing Christ to be in your life. Because it's going to help you as an individual to have access to peace. It's going to help you have the tools to bring peace into your marriage. So we encourage you to take advantage of having access to the Holy Spirit and allow that fruit to manifest in your life so you can have, I saw somebody, something, it went kind of fast, something about a win-win situation. That's absolutely correct. What you want is a win-win situation. And both people to win.
Alicia was saying that the goal of assertive communication is to get your...
Oh, there it is. Okay. Get to her comment. Ooh, she said personality. That's true, Alicia. Your personality has a lot to do with how you communicate. Oh, it has a lot to do with. That's another thing. We haven't talked about that in a long time. Right. But understand. Yeah, that's a lesson we might have to go back and pull back up. It's a long lesson though, but just talking about different personalities that people can have. But ultimately, no matter what your personality is, you're going to communicate somewhere along the lines of what we're talking about.
And see, as assertive communicator, she was saying that you learn to respect each other's wants, needs, and preferences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's good.
Absolutely.
So we've hit it tonight.
Well, let me just go over this real quick because this is an important part. It's not going to hurt if we go 5 minutes over. I think they'll forgive us.
Y'all know I'm a timekeeper, right? I believe in respecting people's time. Go ahead quickly. Yes, ma'am.
So there's some steps you can take to improve your communication. So real quick, and these are just what we came up with. Some of these were in the, I didn't get the name of the, Amy Shaw is the person who whose information we are using. There's lots of information online about communication styles, but this was just something that she put out in reference to, Amy Shaw put out in reference to COVID and communicating, and that's just what we chose to use as a reference tonight. But here's some things that you can do, some steps you can take to improve your communication, something you can put in action today. Number one, pray and ask God for you to see yourself honestly, and for you to see yourself in which type of communication style you seem to implement most of the time. Ask God to help you to understand that and to give you the grace to change it. Okay, that's first. Second thing we would say is to do what we're doing here tonight, which is to familiarize yourself with what those different those 4 basic communication styles are: aggressive, passive, passive-aggressive, passive-aggressive. It's the third, and then the fourth would be assertive, and that's the one that we want you to achieve, to learn, to get the skills to be an assertive listener. So the first was to pray about it. Second was to familiarize yourself with the characteristics of each style. The third is to become familiar with the style that your partner is using. Not for you to try to change your partner, but for you to understand what's the dynamic between the two of you. Is one of you passive and the other assertive? God help the passive one. Or are you both passive aggressive? That can be explosive. Or do you have 2 aggressive people, or aggressive, passive aggressive, or passive and then passive aggressive? So get to know and understand how each of you are communicating with the other. That's just going to help you understand how you can make some change, what changes are needed in your household. Can't change your partner. You can only change yourself. You might can make your partner aware, but it's up to them whether or not they make that change. And I will say one person can inspire the other to change. Okay. When your partner sees a change in you, you don't even have to say anything. It can evoke a change in them. Prayer too. And the fourth thing that we would say is to work together to integrate assertive communication skills in the way you communicate with your spouse, back and forth with one another.
All right. Good job with that.
All right. I felt a little rushed.
Yeah,
but
we gotta do what we gotta do to keep people coming back. Yeah. But as closing tonight, just want to leave with a scripture. Proverbs 15:1. It says, "A soft word turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger."
That is so true.
So
keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And it takes fruit of the Spirit.
That's right. It takes fruit of the Spirit. So with that said, from the lady and the coach, we love y'all. Good night.